Simple, using AI to support the transformation of academic literature into actionable insights. My name is Elinor Bally, and I'm a JSNA researcher for the public health communities. As part of my role, I produce literature reviews. So we'll start off then. Historically, literature reviews have been quite complex, from kind of the pre-internet era, 1990s, where you're going into libraries and manually writing them, all the way up into that kind of connected research era where we've now got access to thousands of literature, and it's almost difficult to kind of pinpoint what literature you're after. But excitingly now, we're moving into the AI-enhanced era, where we can kind of use these AI softwares to help utilise this large amount of data. And this has huge potential. We can consume more data than ever before, so that means we can include more studies and more evidence in our work. We can understand more data than ever before, so we can use these softwares to help kind of analyse complex statistical analysis and also translate that academic jargon. But most importantly, it makes us more efficient. We can produce these pieces of work way quicker, making our managers very happy. But this doesn't come without risk. AI can produce false or misleading information, also known as hallucinations. AI can reflect bias, and it cannot provide us with balanced or accurate insights. And it also can lack that contextual awareness. So I like to see it as AI provides us with textbook answers, and we all know that textbook answers don't always solve the problem at hand. So we also need that lived experience to really give that actionable insight. So, with this all in mind, do you think that we can fully trust AI to provide us with general actionable insight? Anyone think so? No? No? Yes. So, simple answer there is no. And I've got a few examples here as to why. So, if we were to fully trust AI, we should be eating at least one small rock per day, because rocks are a good source of vitamins and minerals. Or, if you wanted to help your cheese stick to your pizza, then we should mix about an 1/8 cup of non-toxic glue to the sauce to make it tackier. And this is a really good example of it lacking that contextual awareness, that understanding of real-life scenarios. And then just the example in the bottom corner here, I asked ChatGPT what 1 plus 0.9 is, and it said the sum is 1.9. But then I asked it again and said, well, isn't it 1.8? And it apologised and said, of course, I'm correct, it is 1.8. So therefore, that kind of shows that opinion reflection risk. It will tell you what you want to hear. But these mistakes can also be quite serious. So an example here is an iTutor group used AI software for recruitment, and it ended in a 365,000 lawsuit because it automatically rejected female applicants aged 55 and older and male applicants aged 16. A more familiar example is Amazon trialled AI recruitment software, and it was based on kind of 10-year period worth of training data, but much of which came from men. So it was inherently sexist and therefore scrapped. And then something a bit more kind of from my area of public health. There's been loads of recent research on using AI software in healthcare and the biases that it can cause in terms of that unrepresented group. Can lead to misdiagnoses or underdiagnoses or the wrong kind of treatment for these patients. So we always have to think critically when we're using these kind of softwares. So how can we utilise AI in our work effectively? So a quick disclaimer here, I am not an expert in AI, I don't have a background in AI, and I'm new to the world of AI. I'm simply someone interested in adapting to using it in my work, and I'm here today to share with you how I use it in my work to improve my performance. So, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you how I managed to analyse over 100 papers, not 1,000, compose plain English summaries, all in less than 1 month. And this probably would usually take me, without AI, around 4 months. So, all with the help of my AI software tool, Claude. So first of all, some of you might not have heard of Claude. So what is Claude? So Claude is an AI system created by Anthropic. It can help summarise research, identify themes and gaps, and organise information. But what I found through using it is that it is no silver bullet. It will not just produce this literature and actionable insight for you. And through kind of my trial and error of using it in my work to help with efficiency, I've highlighted 3 key principles that I follow every single time I use it to ensure that I don't make the mistakes shown before. So the first one is rubbish in, rubbish out. The second one is verify, verify, verify. And the third one is your mind matters. And I'll kind of cover these along the way throughout my demonstration. So I have an incoming task. So my manager has tasked me to complete a rapid literature review on the evolving landscape of healthy weight management. They want the first draft in 1 month, and they want it to include the impact of ultra-processed foods. Now, I'm lucky in my role where we've worked with the NELT Library Service, and they provide a search strategy and a list of research that I can use in this literature review. But as you can see there, it is 107 pages long, so that is a vast amount of literature to get through. And on top of that, the first paper that I find on ultra-processed food is the premature mortality attributed to ultra-processed food consumption in 8 countries. And there's quite a lot of jargon in that, quite a lot of complex statistical analysis and a lot of academic jargon. So this paper alone, without the use of AI, would probably take me about a day or 2, maybe 3 days to read and understand and use within my work. So from that, how can we create the perfect prompt to speed up this process? So for you guys who don't know, a prompt is an input that you put into the AI, and it's kind of like a text message, and it guides the AI assistant to generate a response that you want. So as a complete newbie to AI, I first asked Claude, tell me about the paper, and provided the paper title. And it gave me this response. I won't go through it all, but it provides a vague and unstructured response. So it kind of gave me stuff like, this paper is likely to say something, and brief overview of kind of information that may be in the paper, and it's not very detailed or structured to the way that I want it. It's also not grounded in evidence, so there's no kind of sayings in the output saying anything that's linked to the paper, or saying where I can find it in the paper, where it's evidence, we don't know, so it's not very useful. It doesn't prioritise the information I want to know, so I want to know the impact of ultra-processed foods, but it's not telling me here what the impact of ultra-processed foods is. And overall, it results in this surface-level generic summary. And to be honest, I'm better off reading the paper than using it for this. Which brings me back to my first principle, rubbish in, rubbish out. If your prompt is too vague and structured, not grounded in actual evidence, doesn't prioritise the information that you want to know, it will produce rubbish, and it won't be useful, and it's not worth utilising it in your work. So, I then make it a bit more specific. I know that I want to know how many premature deaths are attributed to high consumption of processed foods based on the paper. So I've read the abstract, I've got a bit of understanding about what the paper's about, and I'm asking it a specific question. And it tells me, oh, based on the paper, around 1 in 10 premature deaths could be linked to ultra-processed food consumption, and this represents approximately 740,000 premature deaths in 2019 across these 8 countries. Perfect, great. I can take that, I can put it in my literature review, and I can reference it, and I can move on to the next paper. However, when I ask it, where did you find in the study that 740,000 premature deaths in 2019 across 8 countries came from? It came back to me and said, I apologise for my error. After reviewing more carefully, it didn't actually say that anywhere in the paper. It just made it up out there. And this is a really good example of a hallucination. An hallucination refers to the generation of false or misleading information from AI reported as if it was real, often confidently and coherently. And I've highlighted that part because it tells you like it's true, you believe it. So unless you have that ingrained in your head and I'll come to my second key principle, verify, verify, verify. Unless you can think for every step that you do, for every response that you get, you must check what it is providing you with. You may have referenced that in your work, and you've provided inaccurate information. So, like I said, the most important principle, verify, verify, verify. Make sure everything it is telling you is true. So then, what would I do then, now that I've played around with it a bit and have got a better understanding, to create that perfect prompt? First of all, I would upload the paper that I'm looking at, because it's open access, it's on the public domain already, onto Claude. This helps kind of mediate that risk of hallucinations, because it's telling it to look at that specific paper provided. I find that a really good way for it to stop it scouring the internet for other papers of similar topics. I would then also state explicitly using the paper provided. So I use explicitly quite a lot when I write my prompts, because I'm telling it exactly what to do, and I don't want it to do anything else than what I'm telling it to do. And then I provide it with clear formatting instructions. So I know what I want to get, I know what I want my output to be. So for this, I've asked it to provide me 3 paragraphs with the subtitles, key findings, methodology, limitations, and then I've given it a small little blurb on what I want to include. But I think importantly in this step, it's about trial and error. If first time you don't get what you want, you can tailor that prompt again further to produce an even more kind of accurate result that you want. And then the final step that I do is I ask it for direct quotes and page numbers. So when you're kind of speaking to Claude, you want it to be able to pinpoint exactly where it's saying. So when you're going through that verify, verify, verify step, it says page number here, you can Control F, find whatever you want and say, brilliant, it actually says that. Or you can read the kind of paragraph around it to say, oh, contextually, that doesn't make sense, or contextually, that does make sense, so I can include that in my work. And also on the end there, I do say as well, if the paper doesn't explicitly address any point, indicate not specified, rather than making assumptions. So therefore, Claude will again highlight where it's making those assumptions, where the data isn't specified, so I can ensure that I'm not passing on false information. And there we go. We have a lovely kind of 3-paragraph structure. Couldn't fit it all on, but it is 3 paragraphs. And it's produced exactly what I wanted. And this whole process took me 15 minutes rather than 3 days of looking at that paper. But we can do even more with Claude now. So now it's provided us with this lovely little 3 paragraphs. I read through them, and the first thing I see is there's quite a bit of a complex stat there that, for a first reader, it's not very digestible if you don't understand the context. So what I can do with Claude is I can ask, what does, and then say the complex statistic, and it will provide me with a lovely kind of digestible summary of what that statistic means. So it can go through and explain to you why it's given that statistic. And again, you still have to verify, but instead of learning it yourself, you can take the knowledge that it's giving you and then apply that to a quick kind of search yourself and be like, yes, now I understand how those statistics work. So it can conceptualise statistical analysis. It can also define academic jargon. So within my role, I don't just produce literature reviews on one topic, I produce them on loads of different topics. And as much as I'd love to be an expert in every single one, I'm not. So when I don't understand a complex term, I can use this to go, well, what does that mean? And then Google it further, but I've already got that understanding. So overall, it supports that quicker understanding of the findings. So from all of this then, how can we generate actionable insight? So I think the important thing to know here is to go back and say it's not a silver bullet. I am not copying and pasting this into my work and using it for my literature review. I will go through, I will verify, I will make sure this is all correct, and then using my abilities, using my critical thinking abilities and my own kind of assets, I will then read the limitations and I will understand what I can and cannot take from what Claude has given me in the analysis. I think here it's really important to say that your expertise is the most valuable asset still. You're the one with the experience, the understanding, the knowledge to apply this. So from all of that, I then take out what I think is acceptable, and what I think I can justify if someone was to question me and say, why have you included that? I feel like I can say, I've included that because of this. And so the actionable insight suggests that public health professionals should consider ways to support the reduction in consumptions of ultra-processed foods. So from that, I can then even take this further and look for more literature on successful interventions to help create that narrative and build that story and generate that actionable insight. So from that, the third key principle, your mind matters. Don't just copy and paste what AI has, utilise it as a tool and develop it with your own knowledge and understanding. So, task complete. Well done. We've managed to analyse over 100 papers in plain English summaries in less than a month, and there's the lovely document on the side there. All by using the 3 key principles: rubbish in, rubbish out, verify, 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 and your mind matters. So I just have a few further resources that I find quite useful. So there's a really good 10-minute video by IBM on why large language models hallucinate. It's quite a complex kind of term to get your head around and understand why they do it. And they explain it really nicely with some really good examples on how to mediate it. And then also, if you're more interested in the whole literature review kind of process and a bit more kind of academic rigour behind this AI, Cochrane training website provides some really good videos on each stage. So for me, we get search strategies and papers provided to us, but if you don't get that and you want to see how AI can help you with search strategies, they provide a lot of videos on that, and also backed with academic findings, so they'd be really, really useful. And with that, say thank you very much for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions. And yeah, just on the screen, what might you apply these skills for in your work? Any other tips or tricks you guys might have? Because I'm still interested and a novice in this. And if not, you can have a play around with yourself. Anybody got any questions? Yes?
You can tell how much of a novice I am. Claude, is that a free service? Do you have to buy into it?
So yeah, so everything I did today was on the free service. You can just access it from Google. But in my job, I do pay for a subscription for it, but it's more to do with you are limited to the amount of requests or inputs you can provide for it. And doing a large literature review like this, you run out of requests quite quickly. So it's useful to do that, but it is free for everyone to use. So if it's for quick kind of answers, definitely you can use it free will.
I was just going to ask Ellie, what do you think are the advantages of using Claude for this sort of task, as opposed to ChatGPT?
I mean, again, as a novice, I was put onto Claude first, so it's familiarity for me. I feel very kind of comfortable using it in an uncertain AI kind of world, but also it provides different models. So I can try and go on to it if we've got enough time, but it has kind of different models to answer different questions. And one of the things I love about it is you can change the way it responds to you. So it has quite a lot of settings in a formal response or kind of a personal response, or if you've got a coding problem, you can change it to a mathematical response. And there are different intelligence softwares for kind of at each level. So for a specific type of research project, I could set the settings of what I want, and it will provide me with a kind of response in the tone that I would usually use. But also, it saves all of your searches. So if you want to go back and compare something, you can go click on kind of the side tab to it, and it has it all there for you, everything that you searched, your whole history, if you make an account. So I find that quite useful too. But I wouldn't be able to speak on using ChatGPT for a literature review because I've never used it. Yeah.
One thing that just came up in our team the other day was whether you need to acknowledge the use of AI, and I guess it's thinking about the fact that I know kind of in systematic reviews you have to specify precisely what your search query is. So is there an equivalent? Are there any equivalent guides of how you should be citing or not citing? Is it just Google, or is it? I mean, or...
So it's a balance, I think, because you don't. It's such an uncertain realm that if we then say on there everything was produced by AI, I think it's going to shoot the wrong direction and scare people off, especially when we're referring to health. And so it's quite a delicate topic. But in the work that I do, I wouldn't say it was per se necessary because I utilise it as a tool of what I'm working on and my patterns that I'm already picking up. If you are using it to generate something and it's its own idea, then that's where I think you might have to start saying, Claude has come up with these sources, or Claude has come up with this theme. But as long as you're using it to utilise your kind of brain, your understanding, I think we're in the clear.
That was brilliant, Ellie. I was just thinking that how to apply it in the work. So for instance, and that links with the last question of sort of not going into a sort of a systematic review, but trying to review recent what's out there.
Yeah.
And then applying it to healthcare sort of projects and programs informed by. Now, would it be comparable, Claude, with say one of those review software like Ryan and all these things, which are specific for searching literature?
Yeah.
And my other thing was linked to that was the way I would approach it is because I love that process of going through those, those PubMed and then just to make sure, say, Embase, you're covering the European articles and to see what's the latest and do my own sort of, the logic of the keywords and search, and then perhaps use Claude or one of these specific Ryan type ones to ensure that, I might have missed something.
Yeah. Well, to answer the first part of that, the work that I'm doing isn't necessarily at the top standard of that academic rigour. It is rapid literature review, so I've got a short time period to look at as much as I can, and the beauty of using this is now I can increase my academic rigour to include more and to make it a better version of a rapid review. So for using it for that kind of high academic rigour, I would recommend watching those brain training videos because they go through that really nicely. And to the second part, again, I'll mention the Cochrane training because there's a lot of academic reports actually that have been provided like a grid of how they've done it themselves and then done it on AI and compared the accuracy and the similarities. So I think that's something really interesting that you can look at because it kind of shows you that for searching, we're not quite there yet. But for reporting and for evidence synthesis, we're getting pretty close. So, yeah, I'd definitely recommend that. Yeah.
Thank you, it was really interesting. I think you might have answered my question, but I was just going to say, how well does it perform comparing how it summarises a report versus how you do it? So, like the main thing it's doing is picking what's relevant. Does it very often not pick out findings that you would have picked out? Or
Yeah, so I think with this, and it's one of the kind of main disadvantages, is it tells you what you want to hear. So without you even realising, quite similar to what was said in the earlier presentation, on it's not the same as human error, it's errors that we've not seen before and not been able to pick out. A lot of things when reviewing, I've noticed, is it's telling me my thought process already. So I already had an idea in my head and I was like, oh, this is where I'm going to go with the literature review. And then I look at kind of the prompt I put and I've gone, oh, actually, I've nudged it a bit to tell me exactly that. And to do that, I need to go back and critically think again and make that a little less unbiased to my kind of opinion. So yeah, I think with it, from my experience of using Claude, we're not there yet in terms of telling it and it providing you with its own answer. It's very much still you providing it with your opinion and then using that to help you produce the report rather than do the report for you. So if I say reword this to plain English because I speak in quite a lot of academic jargon, it will do that quite nicely for you and a lot quicker than I could come up with that on my own. But if I say, what do you think the themes are from these three papers, that would take as long as me doing it myself. So it's about choosing when to use it to help improve efficiency more than kind of pulling out new patterns that we've never seen before. So those kind of mundane tasks, those parts of the literature reviews that you always dread doing, that kind of side of things.
thank you.
Yeah.
Just out to code it a little bit. It's just kind of, as well as summarising, can it go a step farther and think critically appraise it as well? So if you give it a few different research papers, will it provide equal weight to all of them and just give you what you asked for? Will it say actually, or can you tell it, to say,
Yeah.
focus on the RCT rather than
Yeah.
the case?
So this is an evolving area. When I first started using it, it can, but it will provide you with the limitations of the paper state itself. So as a researcher, again, we know there's way more limitations than what the paper will tell us there is. So we need to be careful of that. But as time goes on, it's looking like eventually it will be able to provide us with those types of skills. And if you provide it with the right prompts, I think it can support you with identifying things that maybe you may not have thought of, but it's less not even thought of, it's that you know could exist and it can find where they exist for you rather than generating something.
We've probably got time for just one
Okay, sorry.
one more question, if that's okay.
I just wondered if you'd use Perplexity to try and do the search initially, rather than sending it to the library service.
No, I haven't. I have my library service.
Just for everyone.
Yeah.
A lot more information is baked into Claude
Yeah.
or ChatGPT.
But it's a,
Sorry, what was that again?
So it's a
The name?
Perplexity. So it's more useful.
yeah, definitely. And Google about, because they'll have loads of mini YouTube videos on the best places to do best parts of this and comparing different kind of sites. Like I said, I was put onto this by my management team, so I just kind of got familiar with it and now I love it and I use this one all the time. So it is kind of up to you and going out there to critically appraise it.